What's up, Gamer Nation? Heretic here, coming at you with the kick-ass review for Nioh of Team Ninja. Now, I've been anticipating this game for some time now, mostly because I'm a Dark Souls fan, mostly because I kind of burnt out on those games and the style of gameplay that it provided. And here comes this game with a similar type of pitch. What Team Ninja brings to us here is a pretty kick-ass and really fresh take on the Dark Souls formula. You got William, who's the first Caucasian samurai. Obviously, this game takes some real historical elements and then mixes some Japanese fantasy elements in there with it. And it forms something completely unique that I have never seen before, and I'm glad to have seen and experienced. This game is completely kick-ass, and for all the right reasons. However, there are a few flaws here and there, so I'll address the good stuff first. So, the gameplay is a third-person hack and slash, but there's a little bit more to it than that. Think Dark Souls, but way more technical. I mean, there are weapons here with high stances, low stances, mid stances, and on top of the core gameplay mechanics, you got all these systems to help supplement it. That would be using your skills to learn more attacks. That would be, using your standard magical buffs to improve the power attack of your weapon. And not to mention all the tactics that you have to use to adapt to the enemies that you encounter. I feel the major selling point for this game would be A, its presentation, and B, its combat. The combat here is just so technical and so complex. However, for as kick-ass and as deep as the combat is, I would have to say the experience is a little bit easy. I would say, in terms of difficulty, I would rank this game just under the Dark Souls games, because while as technical as the game can get, it can feel pretty overwhelming and downright pointless at times, especially how easily some of the enemies are overwhelmed. Hell, I even found most of the bosses I fought to be complete pushovers, but I'll get to that in a minute. The gameplay here is the combat, and that's what sells the game. Another thing that sells the game is also its presentation. It's got a really hardcore Japanese vibes going on here. You're going to see some weird-ass images. You're going to see some weird-ass supporting characters. And for all intents and purposes, the presentation here is awesome. The design of the enemies, the locales, the environments, they all say Japanese. And it's exquisite to look at. The graphics are really great. The design is really great. The layout is a bit straightforward of the levels, so much that it becomes dull to run through the levels at sometimes. They look great, don't get me wrong. The designs look great. However, the layout is a little bit boring in some instances. This is not to say the game is perfect, not by any means. The story is one of the major drawbacks that I felt could have been touched upon and reworked just a little bit more to make it more interesting. The story centers around William, who's the first Caucasian samurai. He goes to this land to stop this guy from harvesting this resource to create war for the land. That sounds a little bit generic, and it could honestly, it didn't really need to be all that narrative driven as it was. Unfortunately, the game is not that interesting. The story is not that interesting. William himself is not that interesting. The side characters, as well designed as they are visually, they just come across as really wooden and shallow, and the game fails to invest you and make you care about these characters that you play, even though it's an interesting setup. But I feel that this aspect of the game can be built upon if this game chooses to have sequels. So what you're going to get here is about a 60-hour experience. Like I said, this game is going to be a little hardcore for the casual audience, but if you're a fan of fast-paced action games, if you're a fan of the Dark Souls games at all, this game is a full-price game, and it's worth $60 at launch. There's a lot of depth here. There's a lot of content here. There's a lot of quality here. Except for those elements that fell short, I say this game is still a unique experience. And I know this review seems a little pointed and a little fast-paced. That's just because I'm trying to get more content out to you guys. There's more videos on Rainbow Six Siege And for Honor coming up, I got some really interesting ideas to show you. But thank you for tuning in. This is Heretic signing off.
Yeah, I confess